So we'll start with the 11th verse. We'll chant the 11th and the other two verses which we did last time. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Ashochanan Vashochatsvam Pragyam Vadam Shabhashase Gatasuna Gatasumscha Nanushocanti Panditaha Natvevaham Jatu Nasam Natvam Neme Janadhipaha Nachaiva na bhavishyamaha sarve vayamatah param dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tatha dehanta praptir dhirastatra namuhyati. So we had seen up to this verse in the last class, where Krishna started by telling Arjuna that he was grieving for something which was not worth grieving for, and then he explained that the Atma never dies. All the people who were there were always there in the past. They are now in the present and they will also be there in the future. And the Atma which resides in the body decays, the body sees the youth, middle age, old age, and then the Atma continues in the next body. So there is no death for the Atma. So there is no need to grieve, since the person doesn't die. It's only the body which dies. So this is what he is going to continue explaining, the nature of the Atma, because that is the first thing we need to understand, the nature of the Atma. So this is what he is going to explain in the coming verses also. So we will continue with the 14th verse. Matra sparshastu kaunteya sitoshna sukha dukkhadah agami payino nityam astantistatikshvas agama payino nityam nitya stam tikshasva bharata. Now Krishna says, Arjuna, the sensory organs which establish contact with the external world, they bring in the pair of opposites. Heat and cold, pain and pleasure are brought by the sensory organs when they come in contact with the external world. These are constantly coming and going. They are not going to be there always. They will come and go all the time. So learn to endure them. Now, we all go through heat and cold. When the seasons change, when before winter comes, we are always worried how cold will it be, what will happen. And we always think that the winter lasts a longer time, because whatever is unpleasant seems to last for a longer time. And then once winter is over, we are looking forward to summer. Oh, when will summer come? Let us feel the warm weather. And once the heat starts increasing, we wish winter was back. The heat is unbearable. So this process is continuing all the time. Same thing with, and this brings pain and pleasure. So all the time through this we are experiencing either pain or pleasure. So this, there is no time when something is there, it is not a continuous thing. It's always coming and going. So he says, learn, have titiksha. Now titiksha means, see, you can endure something in two ways. One, grudgingly, oh, I have to go through this. We always keep complaining, oh, it is so hot, so hot, so cold, so cold. That is the human nature. We always, when it is hot, we always complain. Though we know it is hot, you can't do anything about it. In Chennai, we always talk about in summer, it's so hot. That is how Chennai is. You have to accept that the natural climate of this place is like that. Same thing now, people in Delhi and northern India, they must be, it's so cold, waiting for the time to change. So this we can accept. If we can accept it happily, that is what called titiksha. Learn to accept, because the more you try and resist, the sorrow and the pain is going to be more. So don't try and resist these changes, but it takes a lot of understanding to bring that mindset that this is all part of nature. So the anatma, which is not the atma, is ever changing. So same thing like our body, every day it's a different body. Some days you wake up fresh, you feel good. Some days you wake up little dull, you wake up with pain. Some days you feel very fresh and energetic. So we need to accept that. If there is something we can do about it, we can do. You have a pain, if you find the cause of the pain, you can always take care of it. But if it is something which is natural, when if you don't have a good sleep, sometimes when you wake up you find some aches and pains. That's part of the process. So accept whatever changes are happening with a open mind. Be happy even if it is, or happily accept. Not that you can be happy. If something is not conducive, definitely you cannot say you should be happy, but accept it happily. Yes, this is the situation. Winter is going to be cold, summer is going to be hot. Let us go through this. Let us find ways and means how to manage this situation. So this is so there's no point in running away from the situation. The more we run away from the situation, the more sorrow. In fact, in summer we escape to this hill stations to beat the heat, enjoy the pleasure for a few days, but then you have to come back to Chennai or whichever hot place and again go through the same. So it's only a temporary relief you can get. Of course, you can switch on your AC and sit at home and enjoy throughout the day, but that has got its own problems. So you sit in that kind of atmosphere, you're going to catch some cold, and generally the atmosphere which is created is not so good for the system. Natural, if you are able to manage the external conditions, you will be healthy, because the body also needs to adjust to the different conditions. If we don't expose ourselves to these conditions, we will suddenly, if you are exposed, you will feel more miserable. So it is better to accept these situations, learn to accept things in a happy manner, so that you don't get into that pain mode or sorrow mode. So basically it requires a change in attitude. The same situation, some people will always keep complaining. Some people accept it without any this thing. So it's only the condition is the same for both the people. One accepts it without any grudge. Okay, this is how it is, let me endure this. Other person keeps complaining, but he has no choice, he also has to endure that. But if he accept it in a better way, if your attitude is good, it's easier to handle pain and pleasure. So that is what Krishna tells Arjuna, learn to accept the pair of opposites. Don't run away. Accept them as it goes, because nothing is permanent. What is bad now will turn good, and what is good now is likely to turn bad. We always feel, like I said, the one thing which is not pleasant seems to last for a longer while. But that is only again in the mind. Everything is, we feel whatever is good happens it doesn't last too long. So it may be the same, but since our mind is tuned to that, we feel the good things don't last long and the bad things last for a longer while. So this is the advice Krishna gives to Arjuna. Have titiksha, that is not just enduring, accept things as they are, because that is the nature of things. So this is what is conveyed in this verse. So let us move on to the next verse. Verse number 15. Yam hina vyatayante te purusham purusharshaba samadukha sukham dhiram somrittatvaya kalpate. So Krishna addresses Arjuna as Purusharbha, the prominent among men. So in fact, it means bull among men. So it should not be taken literally, because a bull stands out in a crowd. So a great person. So he praises Arjuna as a prominent person among all the men. He says a person who accepts sukha and dukkha equally is called as a dhira. Dhira is a discriminative person. So like earlier I had said, there's one quality which is required for knowledge of the self, which is called viveka, which is discriminative power. So the one who knows the difference between the Atma and the Anatma, who has the knowledge of both, he is a discriminative person, and he is the one who is ready to receive the knowledge, or he is the one who is qualified to attain moksha. Because one of the qualities which is essential for understanding the self is discrimination. So the more we understand the difference between the permanent and the impermanent, our goal is going to be easier. because the whole purpose of the whole process of attaining the goal is to understand the difference between the permanent and the impermanent. So already he has specified that Atma is the only permanent thing. All the rest are impermanent. So once you accept that and understand this, you are mentally ready to progress further in your goal of attaining moksha or freedom. So that is the meaning what Krishna is trying to convey through this verse. Now let us go on to verse number 16. Nasato vidyate bhava na bhavo vidyate satah ubhayorapi drishtanta asvanyostattva darshabhihi. So here, this is a very, very important verse. It's a very, you can call it as a very technical verse because it's got a very deep meaning. So if somebody understands the meaning behind this verse completely, he can attain that goal. So that is what is conveyed in this verse. So the verse says, for the unreal there is no existence, there is no being. For the real there is no non-existence, it is always there. The one who understands this knows the ultimate truth. The knower of this knows the ultimate truth. So we have to understand then what is the one which is Sat and Asat. Sat is real, Asat is unreal. Now, each thing has got its own. There are two types of nature. Every object has, one is its intrinsic nature and the other one is its borrowed nature. Let us understand with an example. Now suppose you take water in a vessel, put it on the fire, heat the water. The vessel gets hot, it transfers the heat to the water and the water becomes hot. If you touch the hot water, you will find it's hot. You may not be able to keep your finger also for after some time. Now, is heat the property of water? Heat cannot be the property of water because once the water cools down or once you switch off the fire, the water cools down. So, the water had borrowed the heat from the vessel, which in turn had borrowed the heat from the fire. Now coming to the intrinsic nature of fire. The intrinsic nature of fire is heat. So now we can understand the difference between the intrinsic nature and the borrowed nature. Intrinsic nature is the actual nature which cannot be changed. Borrowed nature keeps changing. So this is the difference between Sat and Asat. Something which is intrinsic is truth. Another example we can take a pot, a clay pot. The pot, before the pot, there was clay. It becomes a pot when you mold it in a particular shape, it becomes a pot. And if the pot breaks, again it is clay. So the clay attained a particular shape to be called as a pot. So there is nothing called a pot, just that shape. The clay in the shape of a particular shape is called as a pot. So if the pot is destroyed, the clay continues to exist. The clay, it was clay before, it was called as a pot, but the true nature of the pot was only clay. The shape is the borrowed shape, which we term as a pot. But actually it is only clay in a different form. And when the pot breaks, there is no pot, but the clay continues to exist. Same thing with the Atma. The Atma is the true nature of the self. It exists in a different, it becomes, we call as a jiva when it takes up when the Atma is in a body. The body is not the true nature of the Atma. It's only a borrowed nature. If the body goes, the Atma continues. Because the intrinsic nature of every being is the Atma. So there is no change. The Atma continues to exist, whether the body exists or not. Like earlier also, he had explained that the body goes through different changes from childhood to middle age to old age. And once the body falls, the Atma continues in the next body. So the external things keep changing, but the Atma remains the same. There is no change in the nature of the Atma. So what is incidental, temporary is called as mithya. So this is the word that we normally associate with anatma. Something which is temporary is called as mithya. So mithya is dependent on the never changing Atma. Without Atma, mithya cannot exist.